Tonight on KPBS Evening Edition, a Navy SEAL accused of committing war crimes faces a judge. We have a live report on the opening statements from the controversial trial and what the prosecution is claiming. Plus, financial elder abuse is a growing problem across the nation and here in San Diego, but the city is taking steps against it. We have details. And City Heights residents are standing up against illegal marijuana advertisements. Their demands for San Diego City Council. KPBS Evening Edition starts now. Good evening. It's Tuesday, June 18th. Thanks for joining us. I'm Priya Sridhar. The trial begins for a Navy SEAL accused of murdering an ISIS prisoner while on deployment in Iraq, among multiple other war crimes. KPBS reporter Steve Walsh is live from Naval Base San Diego with details on the opening arguments. Steve?
Well, that's right, Priya. Today was opening arguments for both the prosecutors and the defense. We learned from prosecutors that they have an eyewitness to Gallagher stabbing this teenage wounded ISIS fighter in their custody. They also have text messages of him bragging about killing the wounded fighter. We saw in court today photos of Gallagher and his entire platoon posing with the body, including a photo of Gallagher holding the fighter by his hair. In his other hand, he was holding a knife that prosecutors say is the weapon that was used to kill the fighter. Prosecutors held their first witness today. They had a Lieutenant Tom McNeil, who was one of the members of Gallagher's platoon. He testified that that when Gallagher heard that ISIS fighter was in custody, he raced back to headquarters, and on the radio he said, "Lay off, he's mine." Now, McNeil didn't actually see him kill the person, but he saw the body afterwards. And when they got back to San Diego, there was an exchange in the parking lot, according to McNeil, where he said, "If you take me down, I'll take all of you down." Now, we also talked after the hearing, we talked with Tim Parlatore, who is the defense counsel for SEAL Chief Eddie Gallagher. I asked him why so many SEALs would risk their career to lie in court.
Well, we're not talking about, when you say so many, we're talking about a small core group of friends that they're the ones that are lying and trying to drag everybody else down with them. So, and a lot of that is because they went in, they lied to NCIS, and then once they got locked into the lie, if you lie to NCIS, that's a crime. So you got to carry it through all the way to the end.
Now, during opening arguments for the defense, Parlatore called this a sham investigation. He characterized this as a generational conflict between younger SEALs and their older chief. Gallagher at one point called them cowards. He said this isn't a murder, it's a mutiny. So several other SEALs are now scheduled to testify between Wednesday and the end of the week. So we're going to see now the meat of these SEALs coming to testify. 7 SEALs have been granted immunity. Reporting from Naval Base San Diego, Steve Walsh, KPBS News.
Steve, thanks so much for that report. Well, San Diego Mayor Kevin Faulconer had some one-on-one time with President Trump at the White House today. Faulconer and Trump discussed a number of topics during a meeting in the Oval Office, including Faulconer's support for the United States-Mexico-Canada trade agreement, how sewage flowing in from Mexico is impacting San Diego, and the efforts to curb homelessness here. Mayor Faulconer is in Washington, D.C. for a Border Trade Alliance conference. With crimes against seniors on the rise in San Diego, the district attorney is turning to bank employees to help stop financial abuse. KPBS reporter Matt Hoffman says the DA's office is pushing a campaign to remind bank employees they are mandated to report the abuse.
Reporting suspected financial elder abuse isn't just a good idea, it is the law.
District Attorney Summer Steffen says bank and credit union employees are required by state law to report suspected financial abuses.
Bank and credit union employees are some of our best eyes and ears in the community. They are there and are able to spot the exploitation of seniors and dependent adults.
Reasonable suspicion is enough to make a report, which Steffen says could make a huge difference.
When they step in and they speak up and report suspected financial abuse, they can literally keep someone from losing their life savings.
Marlene Ruiz works at a bank and says she was able to stop someone from scamming her client.
I know that it's uncomfortable to question your customers. It might seem like you're prying, but you have to do this. If you're suspicious, you need to step in. That is your duty to protect them.
Stefan says there are some telltale signs of financial abuse of elders at banks, including seniors coming in with people that seem to be controlling them or with someone that appears to be a stranger. Officials say the financial abuse can also come from family members. Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
And concerns for the elderly are also found across the state. California Governor Gavin Newsom ordered the creation of a master plan on aging by late next year. Senior advocates are optimistic, but as KPBS's Amitha Sharma reports, they don't want the elderly's most pressing needs ignored in the interim.
California's senior population is expected to reach 9 million by 2030. Governor Newsom wants a master plan on aging to address public services, housing, transportation, and in-home care for California's elderly. Kevin Prindiville, who heads the advocacy group Justice in Aging, praised the governor's order, but he says
it's critical that the governor and the legislator continue to identify action that we can take right now in the places where we already know we need to be spending more to meet the needs of older adults in our communities today.
He'd like to see more immediate funding for senior health care costs and long-term care costs. Prindiville is heartened the new state budget includes an expansion of Medi-Cal eligibility for seniors. Amitha Sharma, KPBS News.
Thanks, Amitha, for that report. Activists and community leaders from City Heights want more regulation of marijuana billboard advertisements. They say a number of billboards advertising marijuana in their community violate California law. The law prohibits those billboards from being within 1,000 feet of a school or daycare center. William Perno works for the nonprofit Social Advocates for Youth.
The San Diego City Council has a responsibility to protect kids from marijuana industry advertisements. Exposing children to marijuana billboard advertisements where they learn, live, and play normalizes marijuana and puts young lives at risk.
City Council is expected to reconsider an ordinance regulating the ads this fall. Transportation officials spent $44 million on a San Diego rapid bus route that's slower than the one it replaced. That's according to a new analysis from KPBS partner iNewsSource. Reporter Lauren Mapp explains.
The 215 bus route between SDSU and downtown has been in operation for nearly 5 years and is actually 5 minutes slower on average than the old route. For daily bus riders, like Matthew Vasilakis, that 5 minutes means a failure to deliver a much-anticipated rapid route.
It was definitely an aesthetic improvement. Larger buses, more plush seats, these wonderful stations. But in terms of reliability and service, it hasn't been that much of a difference.
Metropolitan Transit System's CEO, Paul Jablonski, says part of the problem is 4 miles of planned dedicated bus lanes never got built.
We're working with the city to give us the lanes now. I mean, the community up in El Cajon wants to give us a dedicated lane along El Cajon Boulevard.
San Diego City Council members, including Council President Georgette Gomez, have okayed spending $97,000 to create bus-only lanes for the 215, which in reality means they're going to paint about 5 miles of lanes.
Hopefully this year we'll have a pilot to demonstrate that if we have a better circulation of buses, they're more efficient. Riders can ditch their car. It's a real option. It's a real choice.
Except the council isn't setting any goals for how fast they want the route to be or how many riders they expect to gain on the new and improved 215. For KPBS, I'm iNewsSource reporter Lauren J. Mapp.
iNewsSource is an independently funded nonprofit partner of KPBS. After years of delays and legal challenges, developers are finally ready to move forward with a condo project on the site of the California Theater. KPBS reporter Max Rivlin-Nadler explains the new plan for the long-stalled downtown project.
For almost 30 years, the California Theater has sat abandoned. as developers and a local preservation organization have battled in court over how to salvage the landmark 1920s movie cathedral. Last week, the groups announced a settlement that would replace the building with the largest ever condo tower in downtown San Diego. There will no longer be a theater, but the bottom floors of the new structure would replicate parts of the existing historic building inside and out.
The marquees coming back to and the blade signs are all going to be recreated.
Bruce Coons is the executive director of Save Our Heritage organization, a historic preservation group.
It is going to be a reconstruction, but it's going to be a faithful reconstruction.
According to the developers, the ground floor of the building will be used for retail and public space. The mural for the Caliente racetrack in Tijuana, which local groups have rallied around saving, will be demolished under the new plan. Kuhn says the plan is to create a replica mural.
It has a special place in the hearts of San Diegans and represents San Diego when we had much different situation at the border where we freely flowed back and forth across the border.
The project is expected to be completed by 2023. Max Rivlin-Nadler, KPBS News.
And from June gloom to sunny skies, the weather seems to be cooperating as we enter the summer season. Meteorologist Chris Nallen tells us what we can expect for the rest of the week.
Well, hey there, meteorologist Chris Nallen looking at the forecast around San Diego, all across Southern California. But let's start out with the biggest vantage point here of all of California, and it is quiet. So we're talking about quiet weather, no rainfall to be had across California. That's a nice thing, a little bit dry. Across Southern California, more of the same. The only thing that we've been talking about over the last few days has been the marine layer. We'll continue to see that, and even into tonight, low-level clouds is going to coast on in, literally, right along the coast there. 63 degrees for tonight. Beautiful weather, though. It will feel nice, pretty comfortable. Talking about a hyperlocal look, Chula Vista 61 for that overnight low. San Diego again into the low 60s here. Ramona a little bit cooler as we're falling back into the 50s. Mount Laguna right around 57. Campo, how about cooler at 50 degrees. Oceanside, pretty spot here into the lower 60s with those clouds pushing in. So as we again kind of head into the next couple of days, we've been talking about this pattern, cooler flow, right? That's what we experienced more so on your Tuesday. Hotter weather. This pattern continues to be the case, though, over the next couple of days. It's very much similar. So as we roll forward into tomorrow, notice those temperatures. Here we are, 70 degrees in San Diego. That is what we call San Diego weather. 80s further inland and around, say, Ramona. Also seeing the heat build. Take a look to the west. We have some triple digits out there. Mount Laguna at 74. Oceanside, some clouds mixed in, especially during the morning. Then we'll see more sunshine. 72 for that daytime high. Bigger picture shows, like I said, this pattern continues. We see high pressure offshore, dry weather across the southwest, cooler stuff, a little bit of a dip in the jet stream across the northwest. That then brings in a dip over the northern parts of the country in general. Very steamy and humid across the midsection. And if you know any friends or family members across the southeast, they've been experiencing a lot of rainfall, and more rain continues across the east coast over the coming days. Speaking of the coming days, you can see along the coast, temperatures will be into the 70s. Inland spots warming up into the 70s, more dry air in place. Across the desert, though, triple-digit heat going back down into the 90s for Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. And the mountains remaining cool, 60s throughout the weekend. For KPBS, I'm meteorologist Chris Nallen.
3 local pet stores were recently cited for violating California's ban on the retail sale of dogs, cats, and rabbits if those animals don't come from a rescue organization. The bust was part of a sweep by the San Diego Humane Society's law enforcement. Today, I had a chance to talk with one of those officers about what was uncovered. I'm here at the San Diego Humane Society, and I'm joined by Captain Danny Cook. She's a humane law enforcement officer with the Humane Society. Thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you.
So tell me about these sweeps. What did you actually find at the pet stores that you went to?
So we visited 3 pet stores in our jurisdiction, and the 3 that we went to, we found concerns at 2 of them where they were not meeting their cooperative agreements. They were not selling puppies that were coming from a SPCA or an animal control agency or a rescue that was in a cooperative agreement with a shelter. So we found that at 2 of the puppy stores, and then at one of the puppy stores, they were just not showing the labeling on their kennels that show that they are in cooperation with a certain rescue SPCA or an animal control agency.
And what sparked these sweeps? Was it the public reaching out to you saying that they were concerned, or was it because this is a relatively new law, so you have to be a little bit more proactive?
Definitely true. We have to be more proactive. It's a brand new law. It was passed in 2018 and went into effect January 1st, 2019. So we're looking at 6 months that these stores have had to come into compliance. And we spent the last 6 months with a team investigating exactly where the puppies were listed as coming from to these puppy stores, so that when we decided to move out and do this sweep, we knew what we were looking for because we had already done our research here.
And why is this law important? Why is it important that at pet stores they sell puppies, cats, and rabbits from rescue organizations or the Humane Society?
Well, I mean, we want to take a step in the right direction towards not using puppy mills, which are typically overbreeding their pets, their puppies, their kittens, rabbits. So we want to take a step in the right direction where we're using our shelters, we're using our animal control agencies, and we're using our SPCAs for the animals that they have there that have come into sometimes bad situations that we're looking for homes for, instead of contributing to the overbreeding puppy mill situation.
And there's also health concerns, right, when it comes to those animals in puppy mills?
Yes, I mean, these animals are typically taken from their mothers before they're weaned. They're not ready to be moved into different situations. They're usually kept in conditions that are not ideal. Their environment is not ideal. They're not getting enrichment. These puppies aren't being brought up the way that a puppy should be brought up.
And what should you look for if you're a person who's interested in adopting or buying a puppy or a cat when you go into a pet store?
I would say that do your research, ask questions, ask them what rescue the puppy came from, or what shelter, what animal control agency, where do they get their puppies from, and yeah, I would just ask those questions before I just immediately decide I'm going to buy that purebred puppy in that store.
And the store should be able to provide documentation to show where they got the animals from, is that right?
Absolutely, yeah. So all of these puppy stores are to keep that documentation for at least a year after obtaining that puppy, and they should be able to show that documentation, which is what we were looking for when we entered these stores. And a couple of the stores could not provide that documentation.
And, some people might say, hey, I can go online and buy a puppy or a cat from anywhere in the United States, or even travel to a neighboring county that doesn't have these similar laws. Do you think this law is going to make a difference?
I do. I do think this is going to make a difference. I think that we're hoping for some amendments to it. We feel like there is some gray areas there. So we are hoping for that, but we do think this is a huge step in the right direction.
Great. Well, Captain Danny Cook, thank you so much for your insight.
Thank you.
KPBS reached out to the pet stores involved. We've received a statement from the group representing Broadway Puppies. It denies the allegations and says in part, quote, Broadway Puppies and its parent organization are faithfully following the letter of the law in this case and will be exonerated of these citations. Suicide is a leading cause of death among inmates in local jails in the United States. Recent data from the Bureau of Justice Statistics showed San Diego had the second highest death rate of inmates among the state's large jail systems. The Associated Press takes a look at the problem.
Surveillance footage shows an inmate return repeatedly to a closet unlocked by a guard. On his next visit, he hangs himself. Devin Lynch, a former Marine, died at the Cook County Jail in 2016. His family sued the county and in April received a $1.7 million settlement. Lynch's death highlights a disturbing trend. Inmate suicides have become a growing problem in many U.S. jails as more mentally ill and drug-addicted people land behind bars.
This problem has never been as bad as it is today. Jails across the country are being sued. People with mental illness are dying on an almost daily basis.
Jail suicides hit a high of 50 deaths for every 100,000 inmates in 2014, the latest year of government data. The Associated Press and the University of Maryland's Capital News Service examined hundreds of lawsuits involving allegations of mistreatment and the suicide of mentally ill inmates at local jails over the past 5 years. In case after case, jails are accused of refusing inmates medication, ignoring cries for help, imposing harsh conditions, and failing to monitor inmates who might harm themselves.
She had so much more to live for and so much left to do.
Melanie Zumadakis' daughter suffered from mental illness. Tana Jo Fillmore was arrested in November 2016 for violating probation in a drug case. Her family says while in jail, she was denied her prescription medications despite repeated pleas and threats of suicide. After 9 days, she hanged herself with a bedsheet. The Duchesne County Sheriff declined to discuss the case due to a pending lawsuit.
I want to see change in these jails. I don't want any other parent to do this.
This has a special moment.
In Dane Schickman's case, a son lost his mother. Elizabeth Gaunt, who had a history of mental illness and substance abuse, was acting erratically when she was taken to the Lake County Jail in Northern California in 2015. The 56-year-old former social worker was placed in a sobering cell with a surveillance camera, and she was supposed to be checked every 15 minutes.
She begged multiple times over the course of hours for a medical doctor, for help, and no one in the jail had the humanity to step up or lift a finger to help her.
After 25 hours, she tore a blanket into strips and took her own life. The county settled a wrongful death lawsuit for $2 million.
I don't want to see anybody die under my watch, whether it's somebody that's in custody, whether it's a member of our community. Like I said, I take my obligation, and then my employees take their obligation to make sure that people come in here and they're safe when they're here.
After Gaunt's death, the jail installed larger surveillance monitors, replaced blankets with tear-resistant ones, increased suicide prevention training for staff, and added a registered nurse, among other reforms. John Snook of the Treatment Advocacy Center applauds jailers for taking action, but calls it a Band-Aid on a gaping wound.
So the reality, if you want to fix a jail, build more hospital beds.
We'll never give up the fight.
With fewer psychiatric hospitals left in the country, any solutions come too late for parents like Melanie Zumadakis. Terry Che, Associated Press.
American neurotechnology companies are working on a biomedical device that monitors different signals the body generates. SciTech explains its possible benefits.
Biomedical engineering as a discipline is anywhere where engineering, so people that build and develop things, intersects with like medicine and human health. My name is Chris Polio. I work here at Great Lakes Neurotechnologies, and I am the product manager here. I think our specialty is developing devices for monitoring different signals that the body generates. So when my muscles contract, there's a little electrical signal that's generated. When I move my eyes around, there's an electrical signal that we can record. When I'm thinking, there are certain areas of the brain that generate an electrical signal. Our hearts generate electrical signals. So we have a product that's called the BioRadio. What it does is it can be configured to record lots of different combinations of these electrical signals, and you can use it to kind of understand, different activities that the body's going through. So what we have set up here is we've configured it to record the muscle activity from the flexor muscles in the forearms. Those are the muscles that come on when you make a fist. And then this is a force sensor that's going to measure how strong Natalie's grip is. So we can kind of record the directly from the body to get the muscle activity, and then external to the body we can kind of record the forces that her muscles are generating. And all of this information is captured by the BioRadio and then sent to a computer. So what we have here on the top trace is the muscle activity from Natalie's forearm, and then in the bottom we have the force that she's exerting when she squeezes that hand sensor. So you can see the signal is smaller when she's relaxed, and then it gets bigger when she contracts her muscles. My job, fortunately and unfortunately, is very computer-based, so I do a lot of analyzing data in a computer. Here at our company now, we're doing a lot of mobile app development, so we kind of learn a little bit about how to build an app. Kinesia 360, as an example, is our new mobile application that can be used to remotely monitor individuals that have Parkinson's disease. Patient would actually just put sensors on at the beginning of the day, they go about their day, and then we get all that information at the end of the day and kind of try to identify when symptoms are happening. Inside of these Velcro bands is a small wireless motion sensor, and it has On the inside, it has a Bluetooth radio, and that's what allows it to communicate with the smartphone. And these are really similar to what's in our smartphones. So a lot of our smartphones have sensors so that when you rotate the screen, the orientation of the screen changes. So those same types of sensors are in here, and we just use those to kind of quantify how someone's moving during the day. Engineering is very math heavy. So math and statistics that I learned in high school, like those are things that I still use today. But oddly enough, I think kind of something that people don't think about when they think about engineers is the ability to communicate. So I took a creative writing course in high school that really kind of taught me how do you formulate, really persuasive argument in a written format. And a lot of what I do, especially since I tend to work in research, I have to take kind of things that I learned and then kind of put them into a paper that's understandable by someone that didn't do all the work. In our company, we're really small, but we develop really quickly. So you can see something go from an idea in your head to an actual product in the span of a year. Next thing you know, you have something that you can give to a patient, and that product might have an impact on their healthcare. So that is really, really rewarding.
You can see more SciTech stories Sundays at 5:30 on KPBS. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Have a great evening.